And if everyone is ready, then I'll begin. Judge, throughout this entire debate round, we've been going back and forth and clashing in arguments. But the problem is, the affirmative team has dropped a myriad of arguments that we brought up in both the 1NC and the 2NC. Now, what does this mean? They dropped it before they presented their 2AR. They're bringing up new points. This can be counted as a new point because we can't respond to these arguments. And thus, if they respond to these arguments, it should be disregarded. All right. First, today I'm going to respond to a few of the arguments in the 1AR. All right. I'm going to be going to their argument about responding to our argument in significance about our national security threat does not exist, and they said that that means that we presented evidence that TikTok has fired spies. They are saying that it's not trustworthy, thus we should ban it. But the problem is, we can see that ByteDance has good intentions, trying to prevent the Chinese government from getting the user data of the average citizens. We see that the CCP is not working with ByteDance. What is the impact? Again, we've been asking the same point, and the affirmative team has not responded to this. It's been dropped throughout the entire round. Now I'm going to be responding to their argument about the 9/11 thing. I didn't quite understand this argument, but I will respond to this with, it was in the case of national security threat. Again, they still didn't respond to the national security threat issue. We said there is no national security threat, and they haven't provided any new evidence that is after the ban on all government devices. We don't see any specific data that are like very classified information. And we don't see the significance of this argument. Now let's move on to their argument about blackmail. So the Chinese government can use the user data as blackmail. Still, they haven't responded to our main argument, which was it still applies to all social media. They didn't respond to this at all. It's remained dropped. And thus we win by this argument. And they cannot respond to it again in the 2AR because they dropped it in 1AR. And it's a new point, and we cannot respond to this argument. Now let's move on. We presented solvency, we presented inherency, we presented significance. These three stock issues, they failed to prove. Missing one of these stock issues, they lose the round. They haven't proved the burden of proof. They haven't proved that there is a problem with the status quo. Thus, why do we need to change the status quo? We can just leave it be. We can just leave it be. We presented 6 counterplans. One, the law that implements parental control to the installation of all social media websites for people under the age of 18. 2, the law that automatically turns on restricted mode for the viewers under the age of 18. 3, bill that buys TikTok from ByteDance. 4, a law that bans social media from collecting user data. 5, a law that regulates all social media. 6, implement privacy laws. They haven't responded to any of these counterplans. They haven't proved that their plan is better than our counterplans. Where our counterplans can solve these issues in a better and more sufficient way. And we presented 4 disadvantages. They haven't responded to that either. These arguments have remained dropped throughout the entire round. That leads me to my 3 voting issues to end the negative team's case. The first one you can tag as no burden of proof. Again, no burden of proof. You should take note of this, because always the affirmative team has to fulfill the burden of proof in order that an affirmative ballot is urged. And they dropped all 3 of the burden of proof that we presented as the negative team. They dropped it all. That leads to my second voting issue, which is dropped arguments. They dropped the entire solvency arguments. They dropped except one, all 4 disadvantages except the one about the unfair harms on American users and the First Amendment one. And they also dropped the inherency argument. Also, they dropped a few of the significance arguments as well. They didn't respond to the impact. what is the impact? And we presented six counterpoints, and that remains as my third vote again.